So for our wedding anniversary, Pemya, my wife, and I, we visited Jaipur. We had an amazing stay and even better food. We really enjoyed it. But Jaipur is known as the Pink City because of the stones that is being used for the architecture there. City is filled with palaces, forts, buildings from a different era, many centuries back. Now, when our guide was telling us all these stories of how these kings and queens used to live in those times, it felt almost like a fairy tale. We couldn't believe it is nothing like how we get to see today. These were massive architectures with lakes, gardens, all kinds of things. I mean, we live in a 2 BHK of 1,000 square feet, so this was mind blowing. It is hard to imagine how these kings and queens used to live, their routines, their foods, their ceremonies, all this pomp and splendor. There was a way for them to show their wealth and power. And like I said, it's difficult for us to imagine, but the few of our TV shows and movies, they give us a glimpse of it, especially those which recreate these uh, these time periods. Especially in Bollywood, we've got Sanjay Leela Bhansali, a director who is specially known to create these kind of recreate these kind of sets. For one of his movies, Bajirao Mastani, it is said that he created 23 massive sets, and it is told that specific mirrors, about 22,000 of them were brought in from Jaipur to design it. For another movie of his, Padmavat, which is one of the most expensive Hindi films created, they recreated the 14th century Rajputana kingdom, which is actually a story from Jaipur. For another movie of his, Devdas, they recreated the 1930s Calcutta. And again, it is told that for one single bungalow, they used 1.2 lakh stained glass to decorate it. Now, if these sets required so much money and resources, it is only a guess what the real thing took, how much money, how much resources it took. There were artworks which were made with, we remember one was with which was like a 20 feet wall made with swords from those kings that they owned, and it was so intricate, so amazing. These grand designs, jewelry, ceremonies, feasts, these are all symbols of their glory, their wealth, and their power. While we were visiting one of the forts, there was a ceremony happening, which again, they're trying to recreate it for the tourists, where there was so many elephants and camels. Not at all common. We see dogs here and cows. And even in today's scripture, we see a king who was very similar, Herod. And he was an excellent administrator. Rome made him a king. He was also an excellent builder. He rebuilt the Temple of Jerusalem. He built many forts, many palaces. He was very politically gifted. He knew how to make friends and keep them. But not only wealth and luxury, uh, these kings and queens, they're also known for brutality and their cruelty. Almost all of our royal history has a violent past. Even Taj Mahal, which is called the symbol of love, it is said that Shah Jahan cut off the workers' hands so that nobody could recreate the monument. Herod's reign was also marked with paranoia and cruelty. He executed many of his family members, he assassinated them. But today, in the time of Herod, we also see birth of a new king. And there is a stark contrast between both these kings, how they behave, how they lead, and how it impacts the world. I have titled this sermon The True and Better King, and the passage that we read was from Matthew chapter 2. The first thing we see here is that Jesus' kingdom is an upside down kingdom. That's the first contrast. Between Herod's kingdom and Jesus' kingdom, that Jesus' kingdom is completely different, unexpected, and upside down. In verse in Matthew chapter 2, verse 1 onwards, we read, Now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose, and have come to worship him. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was born. Now, these wise men or magi's, I'm going to keep shifting between both these terms so you don't get confused, are scholars or astrologers from the East. And they have come looking for King of the Jews, and their intention is to worship him. They have come from far off country with gifts to honor this newborn king. Now, I'm trying to imagine what Herod must be thinking, because he is really losing his mind. He's the king who is already in place. Verse 3 says he was troubled by this news, and not only him, all of Jerusalem is troubled, they are anxious, they are worried. What happens next? He calls upon his priests and scribes. These are people who are experts in history, the prophecies, and he wants to confirm what these wise men are telling him about birth of this new king, who was supposedly the king of Jews. So a key point here is Herod was also given this title by the Romans. Herod was also called the king of Jews. See, Herod was constantly on guard against any threat to his throne or kingdom, especially from his own family. He killed many of his family members. He didn't spare his own wife, his firstborn, and many other close relatives he had assassinated. And the fact that Jerusalem was also worried is very significant because the city, his own people know what Herod is capable of. His cruelty, his paranoia, and especially at the news of the birth of a rival king, the city is also on its feet, scared. Now, Herod at this time is very old in age. There is no way this baby is going to grow up and replace him. He is going to be dead sooner than that happens. But he feels threatened anyway. And it makes us wonder why. Why does he react this way? Herod loves his position. He loves his power, his status, his name, and he is going to go to any lengths to hold on to it. In verse 7 onwards, we read that he secretly summons the wise men to go find the baby and tell him about his whereabouts so he can come and worship the baby. Now, we clearly know that Herod is scheming, he is lying, and he's trying to use the wise men to find the baby and kill it. Now, verse 12 tells us that wise men, they meet Jesus, they worship him, they offer their gifts, but then an angel warns them and they take a different route and never come back to Herod. But when Herod realizes this, he becomes furious. He realizes he has been tricked and his anger goes up a notch. Now, what does he do? Verse 16. Then Herod, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, became furious, and he sent and killed all the male children in Bethlehem and all that region who were 2 years old or under, according to the time that he had ascertained from the wise men. Herod goes on a rampage. He kills all the male children who are under 2 years old. Any baby that would fit the time frame from when the wise men came to him, when he heard about them, any baby, any children who could be a threat to his kingdom, he kills them. Why? Why would Herod do this? He wants to hold on to his power. No matter how old he is, no matter how closer to death he is, his power, his status, his throne, he is ready to do anything not to lose his throne. When he is threatened, he will do anything to protect it, even kill innocent babies. Now, early this year, Pemi and I, we bought a car, and before we could settle in and enjoy the comforts of it, we were thrown off by the Delhi's parking problems. We had an allotted parking space, but our landlord had never lived in his own house for a long time. So there was a ongoing arrangement in the locality, and nobody wanted to adjust or make any changes. Uh, on top of it, there was this local gunda who was like who was like a person who decides what happens in the locality. Now, somehow in one of our conversations, we had somehow crossed him, so we didn't have his blessings to park our car in the street. Uh, so not only did he create problems for us, he incited our neighbors, even those who didn't have any cars, who had plenty of space in front of their houses, wouldn't let us park there. Uh, he, in fact, damaged our car also. He used his influence, his authority, and his power to make sure we know who's the boss. Now, we had to give up and move to a different house, but we didn't anticipate such a hostility. Pamya, who is from Mumbai and who has known the infamous violence of Delhi, she was scared. I was surprised. I have lived in Delhi all my life, but never encountered something like this. Uh, we were angry, we were hurt, and we longed for justice. It's possible that you have experienced something like this in your locality, maybe at your workplace. Maybe there's a manager who is threatened by your work and who wants to take credit for your work, leave you out. Um, or a manager who has just arrived, who is new and who wants to show force and once again wants people to respect them and shows it by force. Maybe your experience has been in some government offices, common in India, very common in India. People use their power to intimidate you. Maybe you have encountered cops who have tried to extort money from you. Once again, impressing upon their power and authority on you. But we also do the same thing. We are like those people. We have done similar things. When what we love is threatened, we behave the same way. We act like Herod. We hurt others, we withdraw our friendship, we retaliate, and we don't admit when we are wrong. And we don't care who is hurt or what goes around us. I want what is mine, and nobody should tell me how to go about it. Nobody should come in my way. But in this passage, we see birth of another king, a new king, and his way is completely upside down. We see in the Gospels that Jesus, when he is tempted by the devil is offering all authority in the world. Jesus rebukes him. He doesn't want that. Later, when Jesus is on the cross, people are mocking him to show his might, show his power, come down from the cross. Once again, Jesus refuses to do that. It's not because he can't, but Jesus chooses to not do it. Because the way Jesus lives, the way he does things, is completely different, completely upside down. This king uses his power not to oppress, but to set us free. He uses his power to give us life, not to dominate, but to serve. He even becomes like a servant. In one of the portions in Gospels we see, and he washes his disciples' feet. He does not retaliate against his enemies, but he forgives them. He did not surround himself with rich or the powerful, but his disciples were poor fishermen. He hung out with sinners, tax collectors, with the sick and the poor. And in the end, he accomplishes victory on the cross through weakness and through death. While Herod uses his power to kill, Jesus uses his power to give life, to serve. His kingdom is completely upside down. Jesus' kingdom is not only upside down, it is also inside out. And that's the second contrast we see here. Verse 7 onwards, and I read, Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child. When you have found him, bring me word, that I too may come and worship him." After listening to the king, they went on their way. And behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. Jesus' kingdom is inside out. What do I mean by that? Now, the wise men have come looking for a newborn king, and it is very natural for anybody to expect a king to be born in a palace. Maybe the wise men also uh, eventually reached the palace looking for a new baby, a newborn king. But Jesus was not born in a palace. He was born in Bethlehem. And last week we heard from the sermon how Bethlehem is an insignificant town. It's the most insignificant town in the city of Judea. Who are his mother and father? Uh, Mary is a young, poor virgin. Uh, Joseph is a poor carpenter. When they travel to Bethlehem for the census, they don't have a place to stay. They are refused accommodation, and to deliver a baby, only place they are able to find is a stable. Now, a stable is a place where animals are kept. It's dirty, it's smelly, it's not pleasant. And Jesus was born in a manger. He was kept in a manger. Manger is a wooden box which is used to feed these cattle. There is no pillow or cushion for baby Jesus. Some of the first visitors that he had, they were shepherds who are outcasts and nobodies in that time and culture. Everything about Jesus' birth is plain. There's nothing fancy, nothing royal or kingly about it. Why do you think that is? See, to get access to kings and queens, we need to either be of a royal lineage, be from the extended royal family, or have status and power and wealth, some social standing, or be a ruler or a warrior. That's how we get access to these people. It is even common now. We can't just walk into people's places, powerful people's places, politicians, wealthy businessmen. We can't just walk into their offices or homes to get a FaceTime with them. We need to have some credentials to show that we are in their league. To meet the President of India, for example, you need to do something really great. You either need to win an Olympic medal or a bravery award or would have done something incredible for the society. But for access to this king, King Jesus, we don't need any of this. No external credentials is required. We can come as we are. Jesus' kingdom is inside out, meaning all we need to come to this king is to have a humble heart. He does not look at the outside, he looks at our heart. We're all welcome to worship this king. We see both the shepherds and the wise men. Shepherds who are poor, wise men who are wealthy and powerful, both are welcome before this king. Both bow down before this king. Both are accepted. See, the humble birth of Jesus tells us that no one is too lowly to come to Jesus. We all are welcome. We all have access to him. And this is why his kingdom is inside out. He looks at the heart. In Matthew chapter 5, the portion that is known as the Beatitudes, Jesus is inviting those who are poor in spirit, those who mourn, those who are meek, those who hunger and thirst. King Jesus is completely different from other kings of this world. He is not like Herod at all. Jesus' kingdom is upside down and inside out. It is upside down because he gives up his power to serve and he gives it up to welcome us as children of God. He is victorious through death and through weakness. It is inside out because not just people with wealth and money and power are those who have access to him, but those who are humble. And in humility, we realize that what this king has done for us. He has come to save us from our sins. And in humility, we realize that it is only through Christ and his sacrifice that we are accepted in God's presence. What is our response to such a king? What does he deserve? What can we give him? Verse 11 says, "And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. Then, opening their treasures, they offered him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh." This is how we would respond in worship to this king. Like the wise men who offered up their treasures, the call for us is to offer up our lives to the true and better king. True and wholehearted worship to the true and better king. And as we worship Jesus, he changes us. He changes us to be upside down. Uh, we are uh, we are transformed in how we use our money, our wealth, our power, our authority, not for our own desires or self-interests, not for our own goals or comforts or ambitions, but he changes us to use all that for to serve him and his people. He changes us to be inside out. We don't treat people based on how they look, who they are, their status, or their backgrounds, but we are willing to accept and love and serve all people with humility and joy. As we celebrate Christmas, the season, may our hearts be filled with Christ so that how we live is upside down and inside out.